All right, we are on. This application architecture is a React application inside an Antares application. And Antares is entirely in control of the timing and the consequences, and the React is really just a very straightforward, functional, pure component rendering of some state that Antares does all the work to maintain that state. So let's dive in and see how to use this particular library, Antares, to build an application like the one you're seeing in a clean and very event-oriented way. It gives you a lot of control over timing so that issues like this one you may be seeing over here does not occur. We'll actually unpack why that happened and make that go away at the very end. But in the meantime, I want to discuss how this application was built because it's a little bit different than you might expect. It is a React Redux app. And so one of the nice things we can do with that is just open up Redux DevTools and take a look at what happened. So let's actually just reload this page. It starts out with a default search of quilting. And so you'll see that that was the search start action that kicked off initially. There it is in all of its glory with a queue field containing the payload. That's going to go on to make a network call to the Google API. And then each result that you see is conveyed in a single action of search result. And with real-time applications in general, that it's better to convey singular actions than actions that are arrays of objects. And I'll get into that in more another time. But then we'll also see the search complete action, which is responsible for, you might have noticed there's a loading indicator. And so the loading indicator is made to go away with search complete. You can actually just click on that action and see in the store the loading that was true went to false when the complete action came in. Let's look at the entire state. The entire state contains 3 top-level keys: the query being searched on, the loading status, and then an array of results. So you'll notice that if I rewind to back when a search was started, we have no results. And then as each result comes in, we see something being appended to this array. We have many search change actions prior to there being a search start. And that's because the search is what we call throttled. So if we look at the action, we see that we're getting change events for each part of the search, but it's only after they've stopped changing for a while, 700 milliseconds, I believe, that will actually kick off a search. So that just makes it, much kinder on the network. Now, in order to have a detailed specification of what this should do, let's look at its test suite. First, we see those 4 action types listed out so that you kind of know what the application is made of, what events constitute this application. And then we know that on startup, we should process a search start action. That's exactly why we get quilting showing on startup. We process an action with the word quilting. I'll show you that later. We should give the app a means to raise search change events. So certainly while I'm typing, search change events were being fired, and there's a React part of this, and there's a Antares agent part of this. And so the Antares agent, which is kind of in charge of consequences for the system, should give the application a means to raise these change events. All right, and then we also should do that throttling, or debouncing is actually the correct technical term, on search changes that distill it down to like a single search start from many search changes. So we should actually subscribe to those debounce search changes and cause starts to occur. All right, what are our lists of consequences? Well, any action related to search, be it start, complete, result, or change, is going to do something to the UI. So we should make sure that any search action should re-render the UI. And so that the UI has the correct state, we're going to be sending each new action through a reducer right there, right? So we need a reducer to do that. So that's on any search search prefixed action. Those should be our consequences. Search start specifically. This is the complex one. The whole reason why this app exists is to kick off searches. So for one, when search start has begun, we should set the loading indicator to true, and we should empty out any results. Okay. We should also then do the AJAX work to call the API, and then for each item that we get in the API response under the keys items, we want to create a search result action for those. We then want to process search complete at the end. We want to cancel a previous search in progress when I start typing. That's kind of a more subtle timing-oriented requirement. You don't want actually results to be interleaved. You want to kill off the old results and replace them. And that's where this little edge case is, where we kind of kill off magic, but not soon enough. We'll get into that a little bit later. But we do want to make sure from a resource allocation perspective that any results, any network calls that are in progress, once a new search starts, we want to shut those down in an orderly fashion as quickly as possible. And you might not have noticed, but we do put the search in the URL when someone searches, so that if you want to send the search results on, you can do that. That is specified. That will place the search in the document hash, and then also that whole fact that we're selecting it so that we can just go back to another search and the next search without taking our fingers off the keyboard. Those are all consequences that we'll add over time of the search start action. All right, moving on, the search complete action should merge loading false into the props. The result is carrying a single volume, one of these books, so it should just simply add its payload to that results array. Search change should be fired whenever the UI component called app sees changing, but then a consequence of that is that the throttled stream of them becomes search start action, so we want that. And then our UI component app should render without crashing. So this application architecture is a React application inside an Antares application. And Antares is entirely in control of the timing and the consequences, and the React is really just a very straightforward, functional, pure component rendering of some state that Antares does all the work to maintain that state.